Today was a tough one. This morning, Sarah and I had to go euthanize our 19-year-old cat, Cricket. I got Cricket in, I believe, 1999 when she was just about 1 year old. I got her from a cousin because the kitten wasn't working well with her young children at the time, and I'd always wanted a cat. We had gotten a dog earlier that was supposed to be mine, but our Yorkshire Terrier just kind of gravitated towards my mom. She became my mom's dog. But I'd really wanted a cat for a long time. So when we were with my cousin at Christmas and they started mentioning how the cat wasn't really working out, we decided to ask if we could take it, and they said yes. Her name at the time was Zoe, and she was just almost 1 year old. When we got her, we didn't know this, but she kept on making this really weird sound, kind of like a little chirping sound. And we decided to change her name to Cricket, because it kind of sounded like a cricket's sound would make. Little did we know she was actually in heat, and that was the sound she was making, the little chirping noise. We didn't know that at the time. So she got the name Cricket, and that was the name she had her whole life. When we first got her, she just hid under the bed for the first 3 days. She didn't want to be held, she didn't want to interact with anybody. She wasn't very happy. She clawed me, she bit me in those first 3 days. I remember telling my mom that I did not like this cat. I was so bummed because I wanted a cat forever. And then we finally get this cat, and this cat is not nice for 3 days. On that fourth day, she switched. I guess she kind of realized that, I guess this place is my house now. And from that point on, whenever I was around, she was just like glued to me. She followed me everywhere. She was like a dog. She was my first pet. We'd had a couple of cats in the past, one when I was super young, another one that had to be put down really early because of some allergies. And then the dog was supposed to be mine, but then kind of ended up going to be my mom's dog. So this was my first pet. This was my first animal that I felt like belonged to me. When I moved into my first apartment with a buddy of mine, they didn't allow pets there. So for a couple years there, Cricket had to stay with my parents while I was living in the apartment. And during that time, that bond between me and Cricket switched to being between my dad and Cricket. And they were kind of inseparable for those couple of years. And that's a bond they shared all the way up to today. After I purchased my first home, Cricket was able to come stay with me again. And I loved having her back in the house. So happy to be able to bring her kind of back into my daily life. And since that point, Cricket had gone through one girlfriend moving in, Sarah, who's now my wife, 2 dogs, 1 kid, that's a big one, 1 fish, and even another move to another new home, which is the one we're in right now. She was always so tiny. Anybody who met her for the first time or would come over, they would always say, "Oh, is that a kitten?" It was always funny to us because she was always, no, she's not a kitten at all. We always used to joke around, whatever year she was our whatever year old kitten. This year we've been telling people, oh, it's our 19-year-old kitten. And for the most part, she was just like any other cat. She kind of liked to be left alone, especially when she was getting up there in age. She tolerated Lila. Lila would love on her. She tolerated Lila to a degree. There was one time, probably 6 months ago, that Lila brought Cricket up into her bed, and Lila says hugged her a little too hard, and Cricket bit her on the fingers. And that was pretty nasty because there was a lot of blood and it ended up getting infected. And honestly, that's the first time Cricket was ever aggressive. since when I remember her kind of clawing at me for those first 3 days that I had her. She was just the sweetest cat, and she didn't really have a outwardly aggressive bone in her body. In the last like 6 to 12 months, we've definitely noticed a decline in her health. She definitely had some arthritis. She had trouble sometimes making it to her litter box in time. There'd be spells when she wouldn't eat for maybe a couple days at a time. But she'd always kick that. Like, she'd always bounce right back and be back to her normal self, where she pretty much just sleeps all day. Sleeps, eats, and goes to the bathroom. When I'd lay on the couch, she'd come right down and lay in my lap. I feel like she always had this knack for wanting to come lay on me the second I needed to get up to do something. It just was always, I was always like, why you gotta lay on me now? Like, I have to get up. It makes me sad now that she's not here. About 2 months ago, we took her into the doctor just to get a checkup to see if there's anything wrong that was an easy fix. And of course the answer was kind of what we knew. No, she's just old. They said that she probably also had cancer, because they could feel some tumors in her abdomen. And they gave us all the options. They told us there's things they could do, there's surgery, there's a lot of stuff they could do. It's very expensive though, and how much longer is it going to give her? I mean, she's 19 years old. So even at that time, they told us that euthanasia was an option. Like, if we wanted to do it, the vet would okay that. And of course we didn't want to do that at that time. She was still normal for her. Nothing was like affecting her. She was still her normal self, even though it's just being a cat laying around and sleeping. She wasn't in pain or anything that we could tell. The last 2 days, that changed. She started to not be able to move very far without laying down. She had a few accidents, more than normal as far as making it to her litter box. The one thing that really got me a couple nights ago is when she started laying in odd spots around the house. Like, you know, she had her, I don't know, 5 or so spots that she would always hang out in or lay down in. But in the last couple of days there, she'd been laying in out of the way spots, or like just laying weird, like her face like pressed up against the wall or something like that. So I definitely noticed something a little different. And she stopped eating for the past couple days. As far as I can tell, she pretty much ate nothing. Another big one for me too was I could tell something was wrong, and she'd be laying in weird spots, and I would kind of, in fact, it was the other day I was working late at 2 o'clock in the morning, somewhere around there. I heard her jump up in the bathroom and fall. So I went in there, and she wasn't hurt or anything, but she was on the ground. Anytime I would kind of get down to her level and, you know, pet her and kind of stare at her, even though she didn't have that much strength, she would get up and move kind of away from me to another kind of odd spot. She'd go over to a different part of the room or into a corner or something. And that happened several times over the past couple of days. Like, I knew something was up. I knew something was coming, and I wanted to be with her. But after a couple minutes, she would get up and move. And I think that's a thing. That's a thing with animals, right? When they know their time is coming, I think they want to go off and be alone. They kind of want to do what they're going to do alone. And I think that's what she was doing. So this morning, we knew what we were going to do. The last 2 mornings, both times waking up, I thought for sure I was going to find her not breathing. At this point, I was almost looking forward to that because I didn't want her to suffer anymore. I I just wanted her to go on her own time if that's the way it was gonna be. She'd still be around. Like, I'd already kind of accepted what was gonna happen. But we knew what we were gonna do. We knew the decision we had to make. So I took Lila to school. We made sure Lila gave some good pets and good loves to Cricket before she went to school, because we didn't tell Lila what was gonna happen. And then when I was at school, we took Cricket to the vet, and they shaved her little leg and they put in the IV. And we were there with her when they gave the sedative, and then ultimately the overdose of the sedative, which is the one that actually stops their heart. And she went peacefully. We were talking to her and petting her. And right after it was over, it was a wash of, I don't want to say good feelings, but a wash of happiness that it was over now. There'd be no more suffering for her. And it was something that we knew was coming anyway. We came home then, and we had to get Lila soon after that. And both Sarah and I were wondering, okay, now the next big thing, how do we tell our 4.5-year-old daughter who loves this cat? And I was Googling like ways to talk to children about it. Anyway, we finally settled on just being there for her and telling her. So we got her, brought her home, and before we made lunch or anything, we kind of sat her down and had that conversation, which was tough. Because of course, she's 4.5, so she gets it, but she still has questions, and it still feels like she doesn't fully get it. Like, she'll say, oh, I'm sad that Kitty died, but where is she? And she's been asking questions all day, which has been tough. Because you want to tell them, you want to be honest, and you want to tell them some stuff, but you can't tell them everything. I don't want to talk to her about how she's being cremated and stuff like that. We just put Lila down to bed too, and she was happy-go-lucky and everything, and then out of the blue, she started crying about Kitty being dead. I'm almost like half and half sad for me, and another half sad for my daughter. This morning I took a couple pictures of Cricket on the ground before we took her in, and I took some video. I did the same thing for our dog that we had to put down 2 years ago, and as I'm thinking about making the videos and pictures, I almost feel bad. I feel like insensitive, but I feel like it's what I have to do to get through it. That's like my coping mechanism. I know years from now I'll cherish those photos and video. It's just been a hard day. So that's what we did today. That's the story. My little Cricket kitty. You'll be missed greatly.